Welcome back to the Deep Discog Dive. Now, what's the one thing I've been saying for all these years? The first sign of Glee's downfall was that they did not release socks with cute aliens wearing sleep masks. Lana Del Rey's greatest crime as an artist is not making socks with cute aliens wearing sleep masks. The 2010s were defined by a distinct lack of socks with cute aliens wearing sleep masks. One day I'll know what it's like to lose, but not today. Today, we're talking about Ratboys. Let's dive in. Regis Philbin, Nicholas Sparks, Condoleezza Rice, President Bartlett. What do all of these people have in common? Oh, I know this one. Eyes. They went to the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. You know who else went there? Julia Steiner and Dave Sagan. The two met at orientation, became friends, and bonded over their favorite records. For Dave, those were records by the Microphones and the Dodos, and for Julia, those were albums by Wilco and Gorillaz. Julia is also an outspoken fan of Sheryl Crow and Paul McCartney. Can you give me your Mount Rushmore of songs written by Paul?
Oh my gosh. It's so funny that you asked that right now because I'm reading his book, The Lyrics, where he goes through all of his songs, or not all of them. God, he has so many. Mount Rushmore, Here, There, and Everywhere. Gotta get you into my life. Let's go with it. And I mentioned this once before for a Stereo Gum thing, but I love the song Goodbye, which he actually wrote for a woman named Mary Hopkin, who was the first Apple Records artist. He produced her debut record. It's a beautiful song. And he didn't even keep it for himself. He gave it to someone else. So I love that one. And I don't know if it's just because I'm stuck in this section of the alphabet in that book right now, but let's go with Hey Jude. Perfect song. And one of the songs where you don't even realize how long it is. You just love every second. 7 minutes long. So I love that one.
What? That's them. That's Ratboys. In a Deep Discog Dive first, the band was kind enough to sit down with me and talk about their career thus far. You'll see them again as we continue this retrospective, but if you want to see our full talk, that will be available as a separate video, and once it's live, I'll put it in the description and somewhere on screen as a card. So yeah. The fall of 2010 was when Julia and Dave decided to start a band. The name was initially Ratboy, which was Julia's nickname in high school. But I'm not one to serve you clickbait. You were promised an S in that name. It turns out some other band with a similar rodent male hybrid name got big mad for some reason, so Julia and Dave slapped an S on that Ratboy. I know the feeling. Back when I became Mike the Snare, I threatened to sue every company that makes either microphones or snares. And I think I scared them pretty good because none of them ever got back to me or made any changes whatsoever. Ratboy might not be the band name, but it is the name of the band's first EP released on April 1st, 2011. A quaint lo-fi project, the kind of music that screams, we can't make noise past a certain hour in the dorm, so we've got to record as quietly as possible. That leads to a certain intimacy that makes this EP unique in their catalog. Where's this man today? While the EP is not on streaming services, you can find it on Bandcamp. The songs within are on streaming though, but to explain how that's possible would be spoilers for the Ratboys lore. Ratboy's first album was made with a little more flexibility than their first EP. It was recorded during the fall of 2014, mostly on weekends, in a warehouse practice space.
We have super fond memories of that space.
It still exists.
It's still there, yeah. A bunch of our friends still practice there. And yeah, I mean, I think so many of my fond memories are just based around the people that we know and knew at the time who were playing there. And our friend Seth, who made that record, is just the most fun guy to spend time with. And we're still, close with him. And so, yeah.
In the first half of 2015, they signed to Topshelf Records. And in June 2015, Ratboys released AOID. In case you're curious, that name and album cover come from a story involving Julia and Dave stumbling upon a random county fair in Kentucky, paying to go in, and getting a void stamp with the V flipped upside down. One of the best things a debut record can do is convince you that the artist making it is really chill and a good hang also. I mean, you're gonna be spending 30 minutes to an hour with them. hopefully it would be a good time, right? AOID is thankfully a good time. A delightful dose of alt-rock and country that tells good stories with cool hooks. The appeal of a record like this is made clear as soon as you hear it. You're like, ah, that's good. Those chords belong to Tixis, which put a big old grin on my face. You hit me with that descending line in the bass, some ramshackle acoustic guitar, lightly doubled lead vocals, and a full drum kit. That's nice.
I just wanna get a taste of you.
Also, as always, I have a playlist linked in the description where you can check out all the songs I play or mention. You give me an ethereal come down in the middle of Charles Bernstein, or a bit of a jam outro on Folk Song for Jazz. How about I give you $1 million in the Game of Life SpongeBob edition money? As for the lyrics, enough is left to your interpretation, and just as much is delivered clearly and concisely. A song like Pivotal Dates can talk about clambering caves and falling daylight, and then it smacks you with a line like,
I had no idea of what pivotal dates define my time.
You might get a sparse abstraction like Our Mortician's Daughter, or you might have a genuine lyrical uplifter like Postman's Song.
Worry about the day, nothing's great if you look at it with sunglasses on.
AOID takes me back to the days of college basement shows, where you'd show up after pre-gaming with a combo of vodka and Baja Blast, cozy up in a corner with friends, and just casually find a new favorite band. And then other things would happen, mostly because you had too much Blaha. Ratboys were on the road in the summer of 2015, not just because they toured heavily after AOID, but also because Julia and Dave moved to Chicago shortly after graduating from college. They soon became immersed in the city's music scene, and are associated with said scene to this day, with artists like Namdi and Pet Symmetry. As someone who's never been to Chicago and never had its food, can you explain the appeal of giardiniera on pizza?
Yes, I think we all can. So for anyone out there on the tube who isn't familiar with giardiniera, it's a condiment, like a loose vegetable condiment.
It's a pickle, kind of.
Yes.
Everything's pickled, yeah.
Pickled vegetable condiment that exists in oil. It's a great local condiment here, traditionally on Italian beef sandwiches, but like you mentioned, the life hack of all time is you can also put it on a pizza pie. And what that does is it adds a level of spiciness and acidity and even extra grease in a good way that makes a pizza, a regular old cheese pizza, something more and something really good.
We'll send you a jar.
DM us your address. We'll mail you with some good giardiniera.
That wasn't a joke, by the way. They did actually send me a jar of giardiniera. So I'm gonna do a live reaction. I've got the pizza right here and the giardiniera right here. Shout out to Dragon Pizza, by the way. If this is not enough or if it's too much, feel free to roast me in the comments about it. Bon appetit. It's interesting, it's the aftertaste that's really good though, because when you first get in, it's like, yeah, you can taste the pickled vegetables, you know? But yeah, when you really get into the cheese and it starts melting in with the vegetables, that's some good shit. Okay. Oh, runaway piece. Thank you again, Ratboys. It's delicious. Ratboys' second album, GN, released in June 2017. According to Julia, this record is made up of old ideas that she and Dave fleshed out years later. And to that end, GN ends up being a good time for the same effortless reasons that AOID was a good time. The growth really is in the details on this. You've got a lead single called Elvis is in the Freezer. Oh, he is? Come on, I wanted to see Elvis in the freezer. The song is about a dead cat. Okay, I'm glad Elvis was not in my freezer. For a song about a dead pet, it sounds so relaxed and even upbeat. I love that kind of juxtaposition. If felines leaving this mortal coil isn't your jam, you might like West Side and the way Julia's vocals get submerged into the mix in the second half. Or the wistful slide guitar on GM. Or or the wonderful interplay on Control between Julia and Dave, how one plays when the other isn't on the verses, but they come together on the chorus. Or if music just isn't your thing, valid, you can look to the lyrics, stories born from personal anecdotes or Wikipedia rabbit holes. Closer Peter the Wild Boy is based on a real boy who was found living in the woods like a wild animal and brought to live as a human pet at Kensington Palace. And it busts out the strings, making you feel like a regal primate child. Crying About the Planets recounts the story of Douglas Mawson, the Antarctic explorer who was the lone survivor of the Far East Party expedition in the early 1910s. The aforementioned Control is based on a story about Julia's brother wandering in the path of a coming train, but turning around just before it passed, and how her father then became convinced of angels. And if all that wasn't enough, GM mentions Albany, which I'm assuming is a reference to my hometown in New York and not any of the other Albanys in the US. Damn, I should have asked the band about that. GN, more like GG.
I love it.
Ratboys were once again on the road after GN, touring with bands like Dowsing, Pinegrove, and Wunderbar. Along for the ride were two new full-time Ratboys, Sean Newman on bass and Marcus Nuccio on drums. Both gents were already immersed in the Chicago scene. Sean and Dave had played in bands before, and Marcus was the drummer in Pet Symmetry. In February 2018, we got a surprise drop with the GL EP, 4 tracks that are once again good because the universe declared it so. My favorites are After School and Figure. The former has cool trumpets, and the latter was apparently written from a place of great pain, but like Elvis is in the freezer before it, you wouldn't know it because it's a laid-back hoedown. July 2018 saw the release of Be Good by Jupiter Styles, which is not how you spell Ratboys. Yep, this is actually Sean's project, but I'm mentioning it because all of the Ratboys members are involved in some way. And to round out 2018, we got GL 8-bit version. I'm sorry, what? I'd love to know more about it, and if you wrote the songs on GL knowing that they'd get some kind of 8-bit rendition made.
Yeah, this is all Dave. You got to tell us.
That was by a mysterious artist named Dave the Rave. One of my very first forays into like putting out music was like a chiptune project, an 8-bit project, and it was all like tracked on a Game Boy. It was a good little exercise, and it seemed like the right time to be like, hey, what if we just do the 8-bit EP? Also, you know, love Beck, listened to him a lot, like through high school, and he put out the Guero 8-bit EP, so I'm like, yeah, let's remix ourselves, let's do it.
You had made one of the 8-bit covers of the song GL. I think that was the first one. You were using a Sony PSP.
PSP. It's like a
synth
you can play with outside.
The program is
PSP
called
and the Game Boy.
LSDJ.
LSDJ.
Once you did the first one, I think all of us were like, whoa, this is amazing. Dave, you need to do the other 3 on the EP and make it a whole thing. And it was pretty arduous. You were working on it.
The thing about making music on a Game Boy or like an old school tracker is you have to input each note one by one. So it's like D-pad. Input, 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 and that's just a bass line, like do 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 do.
You made it. I believe we were on an East Coast tour, and it took the entire tour for you to get those other 3 going. But
well,
you
let's be real. I was procrastinating.
Well, no, but sure, but like you were working very hard on it in the front seat. I have vivid memories of just like looking over from the back seat into the front seat, and you were just like head down, like just doing like what you just said, like you know, like programming the same note over and over and over again. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, you did a great job with it.
Well, thanks.
2019 was all about touring for the band. The only related release was the second Jupiter Styles record, Ultra Saint Opera. Early 2020, though, is when things kicked into a new gear. It's where they got the greatest cosign a young artist could ever get.
Let me thank the Ratboys for their music.
After playing at one of Bernie Sanders' rallies, and now endorsed by the mind behind We Shall Overcome, Ratboys released Printer's Devil in February 2020. The bulk of it was written as Julia's childhood home was being sold, but while that experience informs the lyrics, the band described this record as being a real team effort, with each member contributing. That collaborative spirit might be why reviews at the time painted this record as a step away from the twang of AOID and GN. I agree with this, except for the fact that I don't. I mean, like, you kick off with Alien with a sleep mask on. On a gut level, it sounds bigger, bolder than the openers from the past two albums, but in terms of specifics, I don't know if I could pin the differences down. It really just is a cleaner and louder version of what Ratboys had been doing. It's like going from HD to 4K. That new combo of cleanliness and loudness, cloudliness, turns out to be a net positive as it makes the songs more fun. Alien with a sleep mask on, like I mentioned before, rips! Not only for its excellent chorus hook, but for its synth-laden breakdown. And that last minute too, my god! Ange is about a childhood babysitter of Julia's and the relationship that developed as Julia grew up, but Marcus ends up being the MVP here solely for the different drum fills on the final verse. Sometimes you're getting a more general anxiety captured in a song like I Go Alone at Night, sometimes it's fuzzed out guitars and the ever so slightest twang in Julia's voice on Victorian Slumhouse.
Looking back now, where did it go?
And sometimes it's distant echoes of drums and guitars on A Vision. It's all rad. The closing title track is the song I've returned to the most. Julia said it came from the idea of trying to create more of a meditation or a mantra, and the result is hypnotic. Not a harsh break in the record's pace, but more of a gentle come down, a light stretch after a workout. The title for that song, and the album as a whole, comes from a position that famed poet Walt Whitman held at a printing house, and Julia remarked at how this may have been his first taste of writing poetry. To that same end, Printer's Devil feels like that first taste of something bigger. 2020 really was going to be the year of the rat. Boy. Printer's Devil was by far the most widely acclaimed release by the band up to this point. They had a tour lined up with some dates supporting Wilco, a wonderful full circle moment for a band whose lead singer cites Jeff Tweedy as a key inspiration. And it was all scheduled to kick off on March 14th, 2020. Well, that's terrible timing. That was like a week before Animal Crossing dropped. Everyone was going to be busy playing that. For reasons much larger than them, Ratboys were called off the road and stuck inside like the rest of us. But they were still active. In lieu of playing shows in real life, the band turned to Twitch. They hosted live streams throughout the year. It was through these streams that the band was able to play revered venues such as Shrek Swamp, Antarctica, and Roller Coaster Tycoon. Songs were played, jokes were made, the occasional guest was invited, good times. While the live streams did continue to a lesser extent into 2021, we also got a new record, Happy Birthday Ratboy, on April 1st, 2021. 10 years to the day after the release of the Ratboy EP. And that's not a mere coincidence. Remember how I said the EP isn't on streaming services, but its songs are? Here you go. They've been re-recorded. Now, as an online music discusser who often dabbles in pop music, there's a very obvious, very 2024 comparison I could make right now, but I'm not going to. And this is my punishment. And in reality, these aren't just cleaned up versions of old songs. In multiple instances, the new recordings bring out elements that were previously in the background, resulting in a fresh listen. Take the stanza, for example. On the Ratboy EP, Julia's vocals are doubled and close, and the guitar and percussion are a bit muddy in the mix.
History of loving all the wrong guys.
But on Happy Birthday Ratboy, it gets a full drum kit and a clear low end, so you get to realize this song has a tresillo rhythm, the kind you hear in Latin music.
Oh, in high school we studied Marx, yeah, he had pretty eyes.
Oh my god, you're right. The original version of Key has a subtle swell in the middle, mostly guided by different guitar lines, but on the birthday edition, that swell now has a fuller feeling thanks to the drums and a dominant guitar solo. A similar thing happens with At 39 Is Annie the Oldest Cat. The original busts out a distorted drone in the second half, and the birthday edition keeps it while making the main melody on top clearer. The second half of Happy Birthday Ratboy is comprised of songs not on the EP, but from the same time period, but the final track is totally new, Go Outside. And it's just nice. Like, you ever take a walk around your neighborhood on the first beautiful day of spring and you're like, yeah, that's this song. Listen to those slide guitars. And that little measure of 2 they throw in between the verses.
Yeah.
You might already be familiar with this song, and that's because it was highlighted by a famous music outlet. Ah, look at that. The caloric 5-quart air fryer is going on tour this summer. Yeah, this song was in a Walmart ad that was just as wholesome as the song. That's nice. And so is Happy Birthday Ratboy. A 10-year anniversary wasn't the only thing going on for the band in 2021. That same year, Ratboys began work on a new album, and they had a new producer for this one, Chris Walla, former guitarist of Death Cab for Cutie. Along with being a former member, he also produced many of Death Cab's records, everything from their debut to Codes and Keys. But he's also produced a lot of other records you might know. Tegan and Sarah's early stuff, he was on a lot of that. The Decemberists' Crane Wife, he's on that. Foxing's Nearer My God, that was him too. That was the record that made Ratboys want to work with him, and it was through opening for Foxing back in 2018 that they were connected with Chris in the first place. The band spent 3 weeks at Chris's studio, Hall of Justice, and they've spoken highly of the collaborative and experimental energy of those sessions. The band cites the Roaches' Hammond song as a key influence on their vocal harmonies this time around. This is great, not just because Hammond's song is phenomenal, but also because it activates the part of my brain that remembers both the 2008 Robert Pattinson film How to Be and the FX show You're the Worst, neither of which matter in the grand scheme of things, but I may never get a chance to reference either of those things again, so I'm choosing to live life to the fullest. And that's the feeling I get when I listen to The Window, released in August 2023. The same effortless enjoyment communicated on Printer's Devil and Go Outside, with even more of a handle on the studio. I mean, it's alive!
It's alive, oh, it's alive, it's alive, oh, it's alive.
Julia described this one as the overarching feeling of the world spinning on beneath you while you're stuck in one place, which surprises me because it sounds so... yeah, that. It feels to me like the companion piece to Go Outside, where that song felt like you were peacefully taking in the simple pleasures that life affords. It's Alive makes you feel sheer joy at how the world can just be. All right, yeah, let's go. Morning Zoo reminds me of Wilco's Love Is Everywhere, mostly in those triplet guitar patterns. Good similarity, hella into it. I like crossed that line for the ooze. Those are good ooze. Black Earth, Wisconsin is a rootsy, rollicking 8-minute jam. You think you're living in the fast lane with that guitar solo Dave busts out, but then you get this giant sing-along ending. While having good songs is not necessarily new for a Ratboys album, what sets The Window apart from past albums is the pacing. The flow of this record is quite excellent.
There's something that magical that happens when a band just knocks it out of the park with like kind of what you're anticipating versus what you get, and kind of the whole aspect of tension and release, which we really had fun playing with this latest record. But I mean, I personally have a few kind of specific ideas about like what makes a great opening track, or like why it's really cool to have kind of a strange, like unexpected sound for the third track.
It's not a concept record, but you're still, when you're recording an album, you're listening to the whole record. You want a flow of emotions like Julia's talking about. So there's a lot of intentionality with that.
I mentioned tension and release. I think that's like a huge part of it, and it's like really trusting yourself and trusting the songs to like kind of lead into where you feel they should. And yeah, like Sean mentioned, like this album was pretty much sequenced like going in, so I feel like we all kind of had a sense, like at least when we arrived in Seattle, like this is pretty much like the record, you know, we kind of know how it flows already. So that also made it fun to record because we kind of knew how songs were going to be leading into each other.
There's all these little like tricks that go into it where you can kind of just like give your brain and your heart what it wants without even kind of knowing. And so I love that. It's like alchemy. I love track sequencing, and that's like honestly one of my favorite parts of songwriting. So I'm excited, you know, to keep cracking that code.
And I'd like to pay special respects to the title track. In another interview, Julia talked about her outlook on death and how it can actually be a celebration.
There's a way to kind of see grief in the context of like a celebration, or like like a memorial doesn't have to be you know, like mournful necessarily. You know, it can be joyful.
To that end, The Window is inspired by her grandfather saying goodbye to her grandmother from behind a window due to COVID restrictions. That's a genuinely poignant image, and it's scored by one hell of a song. Back when I mentioned this album in my year-end roundup, I said it was the kind of album that I could see myself wishing I had talked about more. And I think this is my opportunity to fulfill that prophecy. The Window is a great album, and I highly recommend you check it out. Where are they now? I mean, they're right there.
We're going to be on the road a ton this spring and summer. I'm sure at some point we'll be playing in a city near you, so if you want to come out and hear the songs live, we will be out and about.
Ratboysband.com, baby.
Ratboysband.com. It's all there. It's all there.
If you want to get into Ratboys, I would say just check out The Window and then work your way backwards, and you'll have a good time. I want to thank the Ratboys for the music and for taking time out of their day to talk with me about their careers and their music so far. Aside from just being really good musicians, they are equally good hangs.
It's such an honor to be on the show. Thanks for letting us be the guinea pigs of this new format for you. I can't wait to see how it comes together. We're fans of the channel, so thanks so much for inviting us. Yeah.
And if you want to hear more about bands and their stories and their discographies, check out my Deep Discog dive on The National.